The Chicago Bulls are very optimistic that they can move Lonzo Ball and acquire some draft picks. Shocker. Then Coby White has been placed on the trading block as well. And then to end of today's shows, I'm going to give my final thoughts on the Zach Lavine trade that sent him to Sacramento. Y'all know we're going to talk about it all and break it down. But you got to hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shy Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. If you're tuned in with me today, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well. Man, I know a lot of people they on a rocker right now with all this stuff that's going on in the NBA. De'Aaron Fox being moved, Zach Lavine being moved, Victor Wembanyama being moved. But some way, somehow, the Chicago Bulls keep doing business within the last 2 calendar years, and they ain't getting no draft picks out of this whole thing. You know what I'm saying? Alex Caruso is up out of there, no draft picks. People called about Andre Drummond, no draft picks. When it got DeMar, you got a 2nd-round pick, I believe. It wasn't nothing too spectacular. Then you trade Zach Lavine. It is looking like you gave up a draft pick. But you did keep yours. But hey, on to the Lonzo Ball talk now. Now, according to KC Johnon, he shared this on Twitter and stuff, and he did spent some time during one of the podcasts that he normally does, and he put out there that there's some optimism for a Lonzo Ball trade in which draft capital will be acquired. Believe it if you want to. That's all I got to say. Believe it if you want to. We've been at this position with the Bulls front office for years now. Nobody's really confident in the things that they can do. You know what I'm saying? Nobody is really leaning into and say, hey, an AK we trust. No, nobody's really saying that. A lot of people are calling this guy everything other than God's child right now when it comes to AK and the Bulls front office, and then it's leaking on down into the head coaching. Nobody in Chicago Bulls Nation is really on par with the way that the team has conducted business over the last few years. The reluctance to see that Lonzo Ball was severely injured and go out there and make moves. The reluctance to go out there and make moves and understand that this team wasn't just good enough at that point in time. Not understanding that DeMar DeRozan was at his highest peak and didn't really move him in time. Didn't realize that you needed additional point guard. Instead, you went and got Tristan Thompson in the buyout market. You still didn't understand that you needed a point guard, and you said, to hell with it. We ain't going to make no trades. We're going to wait into the buyout market and get Pat Bev. And then when people called your phone earlier on, you still had the price astronomically high to the point to where people didn't want to do business with you. So if you're going to come out here and say that, hey, we want to trade Lonzo Ball, I'm cool with it. If you want to trade him, trade him. But for me to sit up here and act like you're going to have some type of belief within yourself that's going to push out into the fans that we believe that you're going to acquire additional draft capital, you couldn't even adapt. You couldn't even gain additional draft stock out of the Zach Lavine trade. But now I kind of understand it in a way. I kind of do. But at the end of the day, like, damn, bro, the only thing we can get is our own rights back. That's it. Not an additional second. Nothing for a guy like Zach Lavine. So how am I supposed to sit up here and say, hey, you guys are going to do a great job moving Lonzo Ball? How am I supposed to sit up here and say that? You know what I'm saying? Because the belief is that y'all always getting worked in negotiations. How do you trade a guy like Alex Caruso for just a simple player and Josh Giddey, who they didn't even like? Yeah, they didn't even like him. OKC didn't even like him. They told him, look, bro, if you stick around, you're coming off the bench. They didn't even like him like that. But we loved him, and we said to hell with the draft capital. we'll just settle for Josh Giddey, which Josh Giddey, he's a decent player, but at that point, when you go in negotiations, if you talking to Bobby, hey, bro, we'll take him off your hands, but you got to give me something. You got to give me something. So how am I supposed to sit up here and act like these guys are going to negotiate with some cojones and actually do the right thing? So while these Bulls are trying to move Lonzo Ball, I think potentially something could happen. But if something does happen, I'm expecting a crappy return. Like, that's just me right now. You know what I'm saying? How am I supposed to expect this front office to do their absolute best when they haven't given us their best the last few seasons? How are we going to sit here and say that? So, yeah, you could be optimistic that you're going to go and get these draft picks for a Lonzo Ball trade, but how do you feel more optimistic about moving a guy who's fresh off a knee transplant, a cartilage transplant? How are you more optimistic about that and getting draft capital out of that than being more optimistic of getting draft capital from a guy like Alex Caruso, getting draft capital from a guy like Zach Lavine, trying to insert yourself in sign and trade talks to get more than what you got for DeMar DeRozan? To hell, why you wasn't optimistic that you could get the 2 second rounders for Drummond? I'm just saying. How can we be optimistic about this right now when these guys have screwed it up? That's all I'm saying. But now, all on to the Coby White trade talk. Excuse me. So according to Bobby Marks of ESPN, he had 3 names to keep an eye on when it comes to names that might be moving around or circulating in the trade world for the Chicago Bulls. He said, here are 3 names to keep an eye on when we get going for the trade deadline: Lonzo Ball, Nikola Vucevic, and certainly Coby White. Look for Chicago to keep building up their draft assets that they have started to accumulate in this Zach Lavine trade. Okay, I guess. Look, Coby White being on a trade block is not surprising at this point for me. I remember a few years ago, before Coby White had the outstanding year last year, a lot of Bulls fans, probably including myself, was like, hey, bro, it just might not be it. If some teams want to, you might have to explore the option. But then I came on side, it was like, hey, this young fella, he can ball, because he started to ball out. And then last season, he had an outstanding season. You know what I'm saying? Didn't end as strong as it started, but still overall, if you look at the things in totality, you say, hey, Coby White had a great year. You know what I'm saying? But this year, yes, the point total looks good, but the efficiency is not there. He has been inconsistent this season for the Chicago Bulls. So I kind of understand it to a degree on why Coby White is being circulated around to, you know what I'm saying, to being on the trade block so the Bulls can acquire a little bit more talent. Then it kind of makes more sense when you talk about all the guards that they got in there. We don't necessarily know how they feel about Dalen Terry. You know that Ayo Dosunmu is still a part of the squad. You know Josh Giddey, or at least my anticipation is that he's going to be a part of the future, which they're going to have to allocate funds to, because his deal is up this year and they're going to be going back to the negotiation tables. So I kind of understand it in a way. I do. I don't necessarily know if you should go ahead and execute this trade, but at this point, do what you got to do, Chicago, but just do it right. But it goes back to the original point to what I said earlier. Do we really believe that they're going to do things right? No, not really. So at the end of the day, these names can circulate on the trade block all they want. We can hope that the Bulls will do right by these guys, or at least right by the organization, because it seemed like the Bulls been doing right by the players a lot more so than doing right by the organization. Look, I'm not mad at organizations trying to, you know, saying shine a positive light on them, on themselves, and then kind of assist with some of their players and helping them reach their destinations. But at the same time, that don't mean you bend over and take it. You got to fight back a little bit. You got to be able to let these guys know, yeah, we want to move these players, but you got to pay the piper, bro. That's what it really comes down to. So if Coby White is really, really being shopped around, look, I can't even defend it at this point. Like, Coby White has been here a number of years. Look, I love the talent. I believe that he could be more consistent, but At this day and age, when you look at the Chicago Bulls, again, I gave y'all my untouchable Chicago Bulls the last few nights, especially while we was doing live calls during the game. My only untouchables on the team, and it's because I'm biased, is Montes Buzelis and Ayo Dosunmu. Those are my only two untouchables, and I'm going to stand on that. I think Ayo Dosunmu is a versatile combo guard that any team can utilize. His efficiency, his skill in transition, the defense, the improved three-point shot, the attack in the basket, all the above has been consistent from Ayo Dosunmu. Literally one of the most consistent Chicago Bulls, the most dependable Chicago Bull that we have, or at least one of them. You know what I'm saying? So show a lot of love to Ayo Dosunmu from my personal opinion. But y'all let me know how y'all feeling about that when it comes to Coby White being listed on that trade block. So let me know down below. But now, before we end the show, I want to give my final thoughts on the Zach Lavine trade. Look, it probably wasn't the return that a lot of us wanted. It probably wasn't. Hell, it wasn't. You know what I'm saying? Guys like Kevin Huerter, Zach Collins, and Trey Jones don't necessarily move the needle if you're the Chicago Bulls. It kind of looks mid. But if we looking at things in totality, y'all know we gonna look at things. When you talking to me, we're gonna look at things from both sides. So on one side, I honestly feel people when they say to hell with this team, the trade was weak as hell, etc., etc. I agree with that. But my job and my intentions is to provide context from the other side of the argument, whether you like it or not. That's my job. So the other side of it is, did we forget that Zach Lavine trade value was virtually basura? Did we forget the man's trade value was dumpster juice? Yes. So we had to look at that. So it wasn't going to be a lot of teams, in my personal opinion, clamoring and trying to crawl over other teams to go ahead and get a Zach Lavine. That still doesn't mean the Chicago Bulls had to be idiots. There's been something that's floating around saying that the Chicago Bulls was not patient with the deal that the Golden State Warriors were trying to offer. You take it for what you will. It's just rumors. But I will say this. Yes, the side that wanted more picks out of this, I feel it. But there's a side to this to say we needed to move on. We've all can come to an agreement that the front office has dug in their butt for years and just waited too long to move players. Who's to know that if it wasn't a better offer last year and the Bulls just sat there? What about the year prior to that? What about the last few years before they gave them the re-up money? How was that? You give them the money, but I'm just saying, if you come to those terms and you say, hey, we needed the more picks, you got to provide the context to say this man trade value was pretty much in the dumpster. And the thing is, I guess there's a silver lining in it, right? Nobody wants to hear it, but y'all wanted to keep the top 10 pick at the sake of just purposely losing games. Now they don't have to purposely lose games to keep the pick, but they're going to lose anyway because they're not that good. Like, face the reality. You don't have to purposely tank when you stink. So that's what it is for the Chicago Bulls. So the pick is secure. Yes, we wanted additional capital, but the pick is secure, right? The direction has been made. We've finally made a decision. Now I will try to add a case for firing Billy Donovan. Hell, fire the front office too, but it's never going to happen for neither one of the players. But my thing is that the Chicago Bulls are going to have a hard, long look in the mirror and ask themselves if Billy Donovan is the guy to lead a rebuilding young squad. He's not. So while we didn't like the Zach Lavine trade, there was some small victories in that. Probably some shit that a lot of people don't want to hear. But that's my job, to tell you some things that you don't want to hear when it comes to the squad. It's okay. They chose the direction and they kept the pick. Did we expect the front office to do something competent? If not, if you expected them to do something competent with Zach Lavine and trading these players, you fooled yourself. The evidence has been there to let us know the front office virtually don't know what the hell they're doing. Virtually, like they really don't know what the hell they're doing. But those are my final thoughts. We got something out of it, I guess. And if you thought that the Bulls front office was going to be better, you played yourself. You got up in arms and started shouting and jumping off the table. That's on you. Fan how you want to fan. But evidence always told us that this front office was some bullshitters. So I can't even be mad. I wish you the best, Zach Lavine. Appreciate you, my guy. When we see you, we're going to hope you hoop. Just not hoop versus the Chicago Bulls. Matter of fact, drop 40 on them in the first game back. After that, you can suck. But that is it for me today, y'all. I appreciate y'all so much for tuning in to another episode. Before you get up out of here, leave your feedback, comments, concerns down in the comment box below. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you always see red. And you already know, we're going to catch y'all on the next one for sure.
Cognac. Gang.